Today we're covering the update 8.10 refines and Fire Emblem Heroes. This month we have new skills for Veld, Ilyana, Flayn, Melody, plus Harmonic Veronica and Xander. We'll go through each refine and discuss new playstyle and build ideas. First up is Veld. He's one of those Grand Hero Battle Red mages with a super gimmicky weapon and the usual higher attack and res made stat spread. Veld's Petrify has gotten some updates. This 14-byte tome grants a flat +3 res. For 5 turns, inflict gravity on the foe with the lowest specified stat, and inflict -7 attack and speed debuffs, and the sabotage status onto that foe, plus foes within 2 spaces for 1 turn. Each turn, the lowest specified stat changes going from HP, attack, speed, defense, and res. For combat, if Veld initiates or is next to 1 or fewer allies, he gets +5 to all stats and a free follow-up attack. Petrify's attack and speed debuff now works on an AoE, and it gets doubled up with sabotage. Veld gets some combative stats and a free follow-up since he's not that fast. For his refine, if above 25% HP, Veld gets another +5 stats. He neutralizes the foe's attack and res field boss and has 30% damage reduction for all hits. Veld also has dominance true damage that takes the highest total penalties on his target or foes within 2 spaces. Pretty much pure combative effects here. Veld can get +10 to all stats, and he inflicts attack and speed debuffs with sabotage to double up. Veld has always active 30% DR, which is nice, and he has low attack and res. You then have better dominance and a free follow-up, not too bad. Try to find some defense and res debuffers. Veld only uses the highest total penalties on a foe, so ideally you want to hit someone with debuffs on all 4 stats. Panic can also contribute to more dominance damage. Veld's gravity is annoying, but it potentially changes target every turn. If you're using Veld, you need to keep track of stats to see who is going to get locked down every turn. This is one of those abilities that can trip someone up if they aren't diligent. For general playstyle, you could try to stack flat res with defense and res ploy for a one-man debuffing job. With dominance, exposure, and resonance, Veld can get a lot of true damage. Assuming you got +10 merges and some dragon flowers, he can hit 50 max HP, which grants the full 60% DR piercing from resonance. This can work for a fun debuff with some nuking potential build. Another option is Legu's Friend for enemy phasing. This will cut the refine's 30% DR in half, but full DR piercing specials, true damage, and flat DR could be worth a trade. If you want, Veld could run Flare and the new Times Pulse Echo to trigger Emblem Ike's Ring. He can also technically trigger Creation Pulses -2 instant cooldown since he inflicts gravity and sabotage. Obviously, that's only going to hit 1 enemy though. For other options, Special Spiral 4, Tempo 4, and No Follow-Up 4 all have DR piercing capabilities, Oath 4 or Pledge for self-buffing C skills, Remote Mirror, Brash 4, Guard 4, etc. for stacking % DR. Instead of stacking res, Veld could also stack HP for things like Imagery Pulse 4 or Pulse Tie support. I'll also throw in a mention for Sudden Panic. For the most part, Veld is annoying, but I don't imagine you'll see him that much. He did get some decent combative effects, and of course he has many infantry skills to abuse. Like before, he has the potential to catch someone off guard with his gravity gimmick. Would have been neat if he got the end turn effect, but that would be kind of insane for Heroic Rail Refine. If anything, maybe he should have also inflicted stall or inflicted gravity after combat, something like that. Next up, Ilyana is a demote blue infantry mage. She has higher attack and res focus with some speed and no defense. If you wanted to invest in this hungry mage, she does have a resplendent outfit for extra stats. Ilyana gets the new Craver's Tome. This 14-byte weapon works if above 25% HP. Ilyana gets +5 to all stats, a free follow-up, and heals 7 HP after combat. If she's within 2 spaces of an ally and has higher res than the foe, Ilyana gets flat damage reduction equal to the difference between res stats during combat. Think of this like a flat DR Dragon Wall, and Ilyana can get up to 20 flat DR against really low res foes. For her refine, if above 25% HP, Ilyana gets another +5 stats. She neutralizes any res debuffs on herself while neutralizing the foe's res field boss. She also has true damage based on 20% res and gets spread time cooldown for all actions. Ilyana will use her good base resistance to hopefully get a lot of flat DR and true damage. She gets +10 to all stats and negates any res disadvantages in terms of field stats. It's not slaying, but extra cooldown charge is always nice and actually can work in Ilyana's advantage with a certain setup. The one main thing to watch in this weapon is that the flat DR effect only works when near an ally. Ilyana cannot be super alone, which can limit initiations, and she may get hit by effects splashing off teammates. Ilyana also doesn't neutralize all stat debuffs and buffs, it's only res ones. For builds, not very original, I know, but Ilyana seems made to work with Commander Ike's skills. With Legu's Friend, Ilyana can stack flat DR, she will have 40% res as true damage, and she gets 40% DR piercing specials, which can accelerate with her Breath type cooldown refine. Against Guard, Ilyana can trigger 3 cooldown Iceberg or Flares after getting attacked. However, she ideally wants Emblem Ike's Ring to stack with the unpierceable percent DR with a ton of flat DR. With Time's Pulse, Flare will be ready after Lagoo's friend kicks in, and that can trigger Ike's Ring on the first hit taken. With the new Echo version, Ilyana is free to run something like Attack and Res Oath 4 for a ton of bonus res. She needs to be near allies anyway, and this also will favor skills like Finish or Form Sacred Seals. For another res-focused setup, Ilyana can be your Ploy or Sabotage debuffer. The downsides to using Stillwater for flat resistance is that you're going to tank her defense, which, maybe could be used with her new 20 flat DR. For alternate B skills, Tempo 4 for half DR piercing and no guard plus breath type cooldown is pretty good. Ilyana can also retaliate with 2 cooldown specials or maybe try to go for the 4 cooldown glacies. For some other skills, remote A skills, Nasi Disrupt 4, Guard 4, Fleeting Echo are percent DR options. Creation Pulse with support can be great to cover Lagoo's friend's scout weakness. Attack Res Menace helps with res advantages. Mystic Boost can let Ilyana take on dragons. All in all, Ilyana gets a solid new weapon. She's set up to synergize with flat DR skills and wants to focus on having more res than the enemy. She's a little forced into a more defensive playstyle due to the 2-space condition though, so be aware of that. Next up is Flayn. She's an old 5-star flying healer with good base attack. Flayn's Caduceus staff used to be pretty powerful, but can it adapt to a world with a lot more DR piercing? This 14-white staff has built-in Wrathful Staff. For allies within 2 spaces, Flayn grants plus 4 attack and res, 30% DR, and inflicts guard on the foe. If Flayn is near an ally, she gains plus 5 to all stats, and the same 30% DR and guard she shares with allies. Caduceus staff adds to its percent DR aura with guard and plus 4 attack and res. Pretty simple boss. Flayn will then get the same effects for combat. It's nice, but I don't think 30% DR and guard is really saving her from most competent attackers. Now for the refine, allies within 2 spaces of Flayn can move to any space within 2 spaces. This is guidance for warping for any unit type. For every turn, if within 2 spaces of an ally, Flayn and those allies gain plus 6 attack and res field boost and the breath type cooldown status. If initiating or near an ally, Flayn gets another plus 5 stats and a free follow. So, more support perks in the form of Guidance 4. I'm sorry if you gave Flayn a Guidance 4 skill. To stack with her in-combat buffs, Flayn can have attack and res field buffs. She now brings breath type cooldown support, which is good, and Flayn gets these effects along with a free follow. Generally speaking, pretty good updates for Flayn. However, Flayn's main percent DR aura gimmick has been devalued over the years since we now have a lot more units with percent DR, and then foes can pierce said percent DR. It's a powerful effect, but a lot of counters are available because it's so prevalent. It's certainly not as powerful as it was 4 years ago. For playstyle, Flayn still has her 2-space buffing zone. She can handle attack and res field buffs and breath type cooldown statuses, but for her signature 30% DR, you're gonna have to stay nearby. Guidance Force 2-space warping makes this easier, and you can give Flayn her own warping skills like aerobatics or flyer formation. Oath 4 or Echo also work, although Dazzling Shift provides this with Dazzling Staff. Halloween Flame has Dazzle Far Choice, which is also good. Console can open up warping options, and you can also use Far Choice Echo since Soaring Echo is no longer needed. For the Seesaw and Sacred Seals, Flayn has a ton of support options. Breath of Life 4 is obviously powerful, especially for a damage reducing support. Air Orders 4 is kinda spicy with charge, warp statuses, and add speed buffs to Flayn's kit. You could do a Crux long range debuff or Cross Spur to stack with Flayn's attack and res buffs. Double Distant or Close Guard can also be cheap alternatives here. For A skills, Flayn can use Catch 4 or Push 4 for stats. Mastery offers Conta 2, but you gotta fight for that one. She doesn't have the highest res and is harder to merge, but you can try Stillwater stacking with Ploy debuffs for another support route. Now for offense, she will have no safety, but Resonance gives a percent DR piercing option, which is kinda funny. For the traditional Wrathful Dazzling Staff combo, Flayn has a free follow-up and cooldown to proc those offensive healer specials in 2 hits. If you don't plan to tank anything, you could just go with bonus speed to maybe get a double after cancelling follow-up denial. For a one-time fight, you could use Quicken Pulse with the 3 cooldown specials. Those have some powerful effects like Gravity via Holy Pressure or Flash from Glitter of Light. Can be useful if Flayn just needs to attack one time. In conclusion, this isn't a terrible refine for Flayn, but it's a little outdated when it comes to support. Guidance 4 and the cooldown status is good, but the 30% DR aura isn't the same as before. Guard is bypassed by no guard, and more instant cooldown skills are being released too. I think they should have either increased how much percent DR Flayn gives to stand out, or maybe buff her range to 3 spaces, like her brother. Melady is an old 5-star Lance Flyer. She's a pretty typical Wyvern rider with good attack and defense, some speed, and awful res. Her new Crimson Lance plays into those stats. This 16-might weapon activates when above 25% HP, Melody gets plus 5 to all stats, flat DR equal to 20% defense, 1 follow-up denial, and then heals 7 HP after combat. If Melody has higher defense than the foe, she increases the speed difference needed to double for the enemy by the difference in stats times 2. Let's continue to the refine before stopping. For foes within 3 rows or 3 columns, inflict -4 attack, speed and defense, and guard in combat. If foes initiate against Melody or have more than 75% HP, she gets another +5 stats, deals 20% defense as true damage, and gets a free follow-up. Crimson Lance is basically just a Wyvern Rift weapon with a different execution. Melody has Omni Breaker and gets flat DR and true damage. Instead of needing 42 flat defense for 7 flat DR and true damage, Melody can scale higher since she uses 20% in combat defense. Instead of a set +20 speed roll increase, Melody can push this further by having more defense than the foe. If she has 10 or more defense, this will match Wyvern Rift, and you can stack the effect with the skill too. Additionally, you can stack this with Summer Harid's Frozen status. This effect is basically half of Frozen. Unlike Gale, Melody doesn't actually have a Crux effect with the follow-up support. She includes guard and speed debuffs instead. That's still alright. Overall, Melody can really mess with fast units if they don't match her defense stat. Even if they have no follow-up, they can prevent Melody from doubling, but it doesn't mean the enemy can double her either. Of course, you still might want to stay away from magic. For playstyle, if you stack Crimson Lance with Wyvern Rift, Melody could be extremely hard to double. If she has 10 more defense than the foe, they would already need 45 or more speed to double. You may need more speed boosters, but every point of extra defense will equate to 2 speed for that fall roll. Using Wyvern Rift also gives 2 flat DR and 2 true damage sources, and you can add more flat DR via Excel A skills. This build also has 2 free follow-ups and 2 follow-up denials. This lets Melody cancel off enemy follow-up skills, but no follow-up would just negate all of these effects. Still, the idea is that the increased speed roll makes it tough for foes to double, even with no follow-up. Melody may not double them, but if they are relying on doubles to KO, then she can survive. Now another way to go about is using Reopening. If you think the Refine is enough for a higher speed roll, Reopening could add another 10 to 20% defense as flat DR and true damage. The guard effect is wasted, but you can stack the flat DR with Excel, then maybe use defensive specials for % DR. Fortifications is good too, but if Melody does initiate, you ideally kind of want a Divine Vein Maker on your team. Between both setups, Melody may be lacking killing power. Without no quarter, you can't pierce % DR, and it's also just tough to reach a special without a slaying or cooldown effect. She can use odd defense wave 4 for tempo, but you really want acceleration of some kind. For other skills, if you stack Wyvern Rift, you may as well get Earth Wind Boost from Rosado. If you want other speed and defense boosters, well, they aren't common unfortunately. You could just go full attack and defense, but some units can reach absurd speed levels. If you do want some cheap options, Speed and Defense Catch or Solo 3 are in a couple Grail units. For B skills, Gambit or Guard Bearing 4 can add % DR. It is strong, but watch for piercing. For fortifications or just offensive builds, Flow Guard 4 for Scout can prevent specials. You may want a movement skill like Rain Snap, Tempest, or that shiny new emblem Sacred Ring. Momentum does offer cooldown on initiations, which can be worth a look as well. Since Crimson Lance has a Crux range debuff, you can use a Crux C skill, -8 to 2 stats from across the map, and allies get guard and follow-up support. As usual, Melody can run with any of the fire mobility skills, Soaring Echo, Guidance, Air Orders 4, and self-warping skills like Oath for Refine 2. Melody got a neat refine since there isn't a ton of speed roll altering skills around. While stacking Wyvern Rift is fun, Frozen would help Melody double with speed too. She probably isn't going to be super deadly, but being able to just annoy faster units by denying their doubles can be funny. For better tanking, do want to try to get % DR in some fashion, and of course, extra cooldown if possible. Our last refine for today is our seasonal spot and goes to Harmonic Veronica and Xander. This Veronica is a low-speed tankier axe cavalier. She has some very interesting new tools on hand. Gate Anchor Axe is a slang weapon and now has Conto Distance +1 with a max of 4. If Veronica initiates or is next to one of fewer allies, then she gets +5 defense and res. She inflicts -5 defense and res on the foe. She gets a free follow-up attack and now has instant cooldown before her first attack. The amount of cooldown is equal to the number of spaces moved by the initiator with a max of 3 cooldown. Right off the bat, Veronica gets a shiny new tool to just proc instant bonfires, Ignis, or no quarters. She also isn't a fully solo reliant unit anymore, and like her duel with Sharena, Veronica has a very good Conto ability. For the refine, every turn, if above 24% HP, Veronica emits a debuff for -7 attack and defense and the feud status onto the closest foe and foes within 2 spaces of that. For combat, when above 25% HP, grant +5 defense and res, inflict -5 defense and res, deal true damage based on 20% defense, and Veronica's special will now pierce % DR skills. Instant cooldown plus DR piercing specials is pretty spicy for obvious reasons. However, this refine's most interesting aspect is that feud status. Thank you, Embla. Feud neutralizes all support skills from allies, so it forces them to fight with status effects or else they get no help. Veronica's feud status always hits someone and spreads out, so even without her own combat, she provides some solid value for initiators. Pair a feud up with some anti-status units, that way the enemy gets no driver spur type support and no status support. It's kinda wild that they put Tina on the Hall of Forms roster because her thief staff could be real fun with Veronica's Refine. Before we move on, Veronica's Harmonized skill is simply Resonant Shields, and it refreshes every third turn. Pulls for defense and res, and a flop to now for 1 fight per phase. It's nice to have, but not insane. For general playstyle, Veronica doesn't directly benefit from lowering enemy resistance unless you can get Hexblade. However, by lowering enemy res, this potentially helps avoid enemy scout skills. On the flip side, while lowering enemy defense equates to more damage for Veronica, it can affect defense checking skills like Breath of Life Force Healing or Odd Defense Wave Force Tempo. Now, since Veronica boosts her own defense by 10, this will add to Ignis damage, which, thanks to the -3 cooldown and Slaying, can be activated immediately. You can do Bonfire, this would proc when only moving 2 spaces, or if you move 3 spaces, you can offset 1 enemy scout effect. Now with all this talk of countering scout, Veronica can just make great use of momentum. If she moves 3 spaces, she will have a -5 instant cooldown from momentum and the Refine. Not even double scout can stop an Ignis nuke from happening. Veronica doesn't have insane tankiness like Brave Alphonse, so going for the one-shot initiations may be better. Stack attack and defense, fire the Ignis broadside cannon barrage, then retreat with Kanto distance. To complement this build, Fatal Smoke 4 can stop Miracle, Insight grants self buffs and stats. With Kanto distance, Shadow Shift should be easier to use as well. Since it's Veronica, just good old Panic Smoke 4 for some mixed phasing can be fun as well. For stat boosters, Clash 4 is better than Excel if you're just focusing on damage. For budget setups, Veronica's attack and defense solo and low attack and defense kit can be okay with this Refine. For other skills, Veronica is a slow bulky camp, so she can inherit Brave Alphonse's setup. Reopening is nice, although Veronica has a free follow-up, which may mean only 10% defense as flat DR. Fortifications can be fun for survivability, but again, Veronica is not like Alphonse. She doesn't have unpierceable percent DR and continuously growing stats. If you just want a tanky initiator, the Refine can charge defensive specials. Maybe you could do something funny with Pay This or even Miracle. For other percent DR skills, Guard 4, Brush Assault 4 okay. Flared 8 skills can set up the Flame Tiles to hide behind. Hardy Bearing if you don't want to deal with Vantage. For tuned X skills, Guard Echo's okay, but with Wings of Mercy Echo, Veronica can just pop in with Ignis ready to go. Overall, Harmonic Veronica has a very interesting Refine. Combat-wise, she's a budget winner to Dimitri, but with momentum, it's gonna be tough to deny a huge DR piercing Ignis from happening. Meanwhile, Feud support is crazy strong. If enemies try to use Breath of Life from allies, Feud takes care of that, and you can pair this up with anti-status units to really cause some chaos. As someone who just pulled her a Harmonic Veronica from our last batch of free seasonal summons, I did a double take at this Refine. I don't think I'm gonna get another Sacred from momentum, but the Feud support part alone is very neat to me. That's gonna be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on this month's Refines. Next up, we'll be talking about the new Halloween banner. Thank you for watching though, and see you in the next video.